And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTK.com. Sam Webb, Ira Weintraub on the other side, and the Roundtable crew is here. The MGoBlog Roundtable. We've been doing it for years now. It just keeps getting better, and always a great opportunity to chat with these guys after a victory. Joining me as they do every single week, starting off first with Brian Cook. Brian, how are you this morning?
Just like J.J. McCarthy, I am perfect.
I agree. It was a perfect showing. Devin Gardner and Al Borges. We have Seth Fisher with us. Seth, how are you?
Just like Mason Graham, I am ready to go.
Right. And then, of course, the venerable one, the guy who probably more than anyone else listening could really be taken back in time by the stories Mark Carroll was telling. Our good friend, Craig Ross. Craig, how are you?
Just like Davis Warren, I'm perfect.
Davis Warren was good in this game, right? He was really good in the game. But let's just start there, Brian.
With Davis Warren?
No. Let's just start with the perfect performance in that game.
Sure.
Going back to J.J. McCarthy, it was. I think we all expected him to do well, but there's doing well, and then there's doing what he did in that game.
Well, so I watched your discussion with Borges and Gardner about that slant that Bell dropped. And to me, I can see both sides of the argument. But the important part is that he thought he had the slant, and what he did is immediately stared down the linebacker. And you can see him do the same thing on the shot to Edwards, where he's just staring straight at the safety.
Mm-hmm.
He's freezing that safety, so he's got the room. And honestly, on the post to Cornelius Johnson, I think he induces that safety to step up because he stares right at the safety. And then, I watched this like 20 times to make sure I wasn't crazy, but he flicks his eyes over to Bell, and that's when he steps up, and then bam, right over the top. So that more than anything else, like we knew he had a big arm. We knew he could run. We had an idea that he was pretty good at reading things because he's done a lot of zone read stuff. But in terms of scanning the field, understanding coverages, and freezing safeties with your eyes, that's, I think, beyond expectations for any redshirt freshman. And that's the thing that I took away from this is like, not only does he have the physical abilities, but I don't know if I've seen many junior and senior quarterbacks do what he did against Hawaii. Now, degree of difficulty, he didn't get a whole lot of pressure. All these caveats apply, but I was pretty excited after Saturday, and after going over the film, I'm even more excited.
Seth?
Yeah. Just to clarify something for the one reader, that this was opponent invariant stuff. So, like, if you go back and look at like Joe Milton versus Minnesota, we were like, this was a good performance, but he was like making his first read, and the first read was there. And some of the things that McCarthy was doing was not. It was like not necessarily his first, second, third read, but like he saw it happening, and took things that were not things that like Cade would have taken last year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, you talk about where Michigan's ceiling can go. That performance was opponent invariant. Now there are things that he was doing that are going to work against anybody because there's always going to be somebody who's got that kind of leverage. And these receivers are probably going to get open against anybody if you give them that kind of time. It's just the question is the only concern I had was how the offensive line fell apart with Cade in there. But that is like, if that's not a problem this year, this is not going to be a problem.
Craig Ross?
Yeah. I don't know what Al and Devin said on the one incomplete pass that he did have. I thought he put it in about the only place he could put it because otherwise it was going to get it was going to be in the stomach or hands of a linebacker. So he put it right about where he could. Now, whether Bell should catch it or not, I don't know. It's not an easy catch. But he was, from my eye at least, he did about as well as could be done. In terms of Cade, it's mystifying to me that he comes in and there's 3 straight plays where there's pressure when there hadn't been that much pressure on JJ. All of a sudden, you got 3 different guys blowing assignments on passer. All I can think of is that they didn't like ping. and they wanted Callaway. But beyond that, I can't figure out, what was going on. And then in the first, I think, play in the second half, or the first pass play, they have the second team line in, and I think it's Connor Jones at right guard just completely blows it. And the defensive tackle is on top of Cade, immediately. So Harbaugh's upset, and the next time he comes in, he puts the uh, first team offensive line in, and he has plenty of time to throw, and he makes a poor throw. I'm not sure the receiver was open, but still, it's not a great throw, and it's an interception. So I think at that point, this JJ/Cade competition was,
Resolved.
yeah, resolved. If it hadn't been to that point,
I mean,
in
Cade's
time.
not going to be that quarterback this year, right? Like Cade would have lost the competition to TJ Yellen in that game. Like that was a. I don't know if whatever the pressure got to him or the situation, or maybe he can't play in night games. I don't know what it is, but that's not the Cade you're going to get, and you better hope it's not the Cade. That's the real Cade.
So a couple of things. Number one, what they said about the slant, it took us watching it over and over again to see that. Yeah, he drops back, he stares at the opening for the slant, quick glance at the linebacker to freeze him. You see the linebacker freeze, and then he threw it, like you said, Craig, in the only spot that he could throw it. And so Devin's take was, well, he shouldn't have gone there, but if you're gonna go there, that's how you do it, and he has the arm to take that risk. Al's point was, okay, I understand he has the arm, but he never should have gone there. And you're looking down the middle of the field, not at the linebacker. And if you look down the middle of the field, not only do you hold the linebacker, you see the safety buzzing down, and it tells you it's one high, and that means you go to the sit side of the field. So it was the coach, and he admitted, he said, man, look, this is nitpicking. Right? This is nitpicking a performance. And it wasn't a frivolous risk. He wasn't reckless. He knew there was a linebacker there. It's not like he didn't see him. He compensated for that by putting it on Ronnie's hip. He should have caught it. But at the end of the day, when I'm coaching him in the meeting room, I'm saying, don't do that. Don't do that. It worked. You got away with it this time. There's going to be one time where you won't, probably against a better opponent. But again, guys, that's like one mistake in a game where this is his first outing. And to me, the pass that stuck out the most, it wasn't even the one where he steps up and delivers his fight, in 2 minutes to CJ. It was his first touchdown pass. And Devin did a great job, I thought, of really highlighting how out of the ordinary it is to go to the post on a dagger like that. He said they've run that play a million times in his career. He never threw the post. I recounted how that was the staple play of my high school team. It was a staple play on a squad that had Division I guys across the board, including Andre Weathers. And there was a wheel dig combination on one side and the backside post on the other, being run by a college football player. And the post was never thrown by Fred Jackson Jr., a guy whose dad was a college coach. He never threw the post. It is not something you do. If you're preordaining or presetting where you're gonna go with the football, the odds say you're throwing a dig or you're throwing something short. You hardly ever see a guy throw the post. So in his first outing, he breaks the tendency correctly for that particular route, hits the post for a touchdown. To your point, Brian, this dude was seeing the field like you wouldn't necessarily expect the guy to see the field in his first time as a starter.
Yeah, so the other post too is also looks like single high, right? And so you got a dig that's open, and you could take the dig. that's going to be 20, 30 yards, but he's like, no, I want more. And I think he physically moves the safety with his eyes, and then he gets to the post that I don't think a whole lot of other quarterbacks get to. And then there's that triangle concept that they have on 2nd and 10 where guy flies out to the flat. Triangle concept is going to be something like they run cover 3, and that's going to dissect cover 3. And he just puts it on Ronnie Bell like it's nothing. And guy's open. but he knows what the concept is going to do to likely coverage, and there's no hesitation. He just gets the ball, and the ball gets out so fast that Marnie Bell's able to turn it up and run. So we got to see it against a team that's better than Hawaii, of course, but just based on these 12 throws, I think he's ready for it.
You guys are bringing up. Go ahead, Craig.
I was just going to say the other point is, of course, is that the running game opens up because now all of a sudden you have an extra blocker on the field when you can actually run read options. And when Cade is in, he's just not a runner, and he's not one who's going to make those reads. And so,
you get to game plan around that.
Right. Exactly.
Game plan around that.
Exactly.
Like we saw. Sorry, I'm sorry, but
no, that's okay. Go ahead. Fine.
But we saw McCarthy take off and run when the tight end went in the flat against Colorado State. In this game, they come to him and he dumps it off to Eric All, and that's 10 yards. That could have been 20 if Roman Wilson got a block. Mm-hmm. So once you have that guy as your starter and you know game in, game out that's going to be part of the game plan, you can do so many things. I caught a really weird Max Bredesen block where it's an insert, and then he goes and gets the middle linebacker, and I'm like, what is going on here? I have never seen anyone do this before. And I'm look at it. I'm finally like, if this is a scrape exchange, this is a touchdown. Because if the other linebacker gets removed by JJ McCarthy, he goes right to the safety and, probably jukes the safety and he's gone. And that's going to be hell to play against, because it's like, what are we doing to defeat this arc package? That's a real problem. One of the things people often do is scrape exchange. And if that's in the playbook to nuke a scrape exchange, I mean, guys.
What you're talking about is you're going to see, to your point, Craig, split zone is as effective a play as it is for Michigan. It's about to be even better. Right. Because now you can call bluffs regularly, to your point, Brian. And he hits Ronnie Bell. Ronnie was like, I didn't know if he was going to throw it on that split zone RPO. So you got 4 plays off of one, right? That you can run now. And it's gonna put defenses in no man's land when they are just defending a basic split zone now. That run play is going to become that much more effective.
Ace got into this too this week on his one frame of a time thing, where Michigan actually has some counters that they built into this as well. The Roman Wilson end around, you actually Eric All goes like he's going to go and split, and then turns around, and they're like, because good. You got to fly out to that side, right? Like, you're screwed if you don't get control that backside. So he turns around, and their momentum's just going completely the other direction, and Roman Wilson walks in for a touchdown.
If we're talking about that play, can we talk about Oluwatimi?
He got 2 guys on that play. Yeah.
So he takes a down block, and it's like, all right, so this is supposed to look like power. This guy's going to come at me. He just chucks that guy past. And then he has the agility to get out and seal out a linebacker. And I was like, okay, that's
and Ryan Hayes. So Ryan Hayes doesn't get a block. We actually detail this in the film study with Borges, because he talks about how Oluwatimi, the way he positions himself for the block, invites that guy across his face. And so he throws him. He said it was intent. He set it up so he'd be able to throw that guy. And then he got out on the edge to spring the play around the edge. But Ryan Hayes gets down the field. He doesn't block the final man, but he reroutes him.
Yeah.
Just with his presence, and allows Roman Wilson to get in the end zone. I know it's Hawaii. We got to qualify it. But man, you see all these guys. So I don't know if it's just JJ's presence, but it just felt like a lot of things started to click better last week. Maybe it's just week 2. Maybe it's Hawaii. Maybe only part of it is JJ. But definitely a significant part to me, Craig.
Yeah, well, you can't. I mean, teams are good when JJ's in, and now that I assume he's taking the major lead at quarterback, you can't just crash the backside end on simple zone reads at the very least. And what Brian is saying, I think a footnote is when you say bluff, I think Brian is saying arc zone. That's the same thing.
Just thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and so in any event, that's that.
There's
That's what
there's
that's
another
about.
play off of that, which I was complaining about all last year. Coaches say that's called split flow, so that's guess what we're calling it. But it's when the tight end goes out in the flat, and you saw them hit Eric All, and there's nobody out there, right? Because those guys are flying upfield. The last year they ran that a whole bunch, especially against Rutgers, and it wouldn't work. Everyone would cover the tight end because there was no way Cade was going to start running it
Mhm.
down the alley. So they didn't have to worry about that. So they just came after Cade like they're blitzing him, right? And then he'd be under pressure. He'd have to throw off his back foot, which slows down the pass. And then someone would be there to tackle the tight end right away. I think Eric All broke a couple tackles one time, and that's the only time that play was successful last year. And you can see very clearly how the defensive ends react differently when JJ is in there because this guy is going to run around you. I don't know what you just did.
I just put you on solo layout so I can adjust my light. So I can you're on candy.
You're the stars.
I feel like I'm up on stage now.
Well, so
all right, I'm getting out of solo layout now. All right, here we go.
I remember that really frustrating Army game from way back where they were running the arc/bluff and they wouldn't run split zone with it. And both of these two games felt much more connected and coherent in terms of what they're trying to do. So not only when we've got that end around, we've got that the flat tight end stuff. We have some things that I think build off the expectation of split flow and work that way. And so I'm interested to see what they have, because not only are they putting together a package like this, but they're willing to show that reverse against Hawaii. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I think that there's going to be more and more stuff we see. And I think we're going to see that same reverse again this year. But I also feel like it feels like they might have been planning for JJ to be the starting quarterback, because this package works with JJ in ways that it doesn't work with McNamara. And so they probably were seeing something happening. And when they're doing install and fall, they're like, all right, well, let's install this. And at worst, it's going to be like the JJ package, but now it's going to be the offense.
Brian, I'm pretty sure Oluwatimi killed it in this game, but you're either have or are working on grading out the offensive line. I mean, what else did you see there? Is there anything concerning in the offensive line?
Yeah, I thought Zach Zinter's performance was concerning. Okay. So not only did he have that pass rush where McNamara got sacked, but there was another -2 event on a play that Corum got to cut back where he lunged at a guy and just got hot passed, and he just generally did not seem like the guy who made a big leap forward. Now, I think one of the Hawaii defensive tackles might actually be a pretty solid player just from grading that game, but overall, I was a little bit disappointed in particularly his performance, and we'll see how that goes. Offensive linemen, especially young offensive linemen, can be very up and down. So I feel like I don't want to say anything definitive, but this is a performance that he's going to need to bounce back from.
What about El Hadi? I mean, he played a lot in this game, and at guard, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple of mental mistakes, which was different because of the Colorado State game. He looked like a veteran who didn't really need a whole lot of coaching up. And there were a couple issues. There was a pull where he misidentified who to block temporarily, etc. He looks physically ready. I think that he's going to be behind mentally just because he's a younger player. But I think in terms of going forward, I think he might be a reasonable option as your top backup guard instead of Barnhart, and then Barnhart can focus on tackle.
Yeah, might that be where they're going then? If Barnhart's just the tackle backup and El Hadi the first guard backup, does that make more sense perhaps than having Barnhart flip back and forth?
Probably, yeah. I mean, given the way that Seth graded Barnhart last year when he mostly played at guard, I think tackle is his better position.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he went up against Jacob Slade last year, and that was just a blowout for Michigan State. Now, Slade is probably the best tackle in the league last year, but it was very, very noticeable. And remember he started as a redshirt freshman against Rutgers in 2020 and was fine out at tackle. So, if that's what Barnhart is, then I would much rather him focusing on one thing than maybe trying to play all those positions. And the coaches like him enough that I have to imagine he's pretty good in practice. But I mean, I think that's a big development for their depth, because we were kind of worried if Barnhart ends up having to play a long time, or if they get 2 injuries like they did last year, then who's going to be your next guy?
So the thing coming out of camp with Carson was that 2 things. He was a lot stronger, that he had really, really worked on his body, and that they felt like he had taken his game to another level. And much like the quarterback position, the talk was that the battle for right tackle would actually go into game. So Trente would be the guy, and then they would kind of see, how things worked as the season or the early part of the season went along. He was performing that well. So I don't know that we will see any guy sort of usurp him as the primary backup at those 4 positions. I do think they're gaining confidence in the youngsters that they're playing. Gio is getting a lot of good minutes in there, for instance. I think that it stands to reason that we'll see that. But when healthy, I think Carson's going to continue to be the guy at 4 spots. But go ahead.
Just very quickly, the grading was not a strength issue when he was out there. Like, his negatives were he just didn't know he was making tackle blocks at guard, and that was the problem.
Misidentifying targets or mistargeting, that all of that stuff was much better. And so it said something to me that when it was so definitive about Trente in the spring, that in fall camp, it wasn't like Trente fell off. Clearly, I mean, he has some MAs, but that's inexperienced stuff. You see his athleticism. You see how he's really come along. That Carson was really pushing him like that said something to me. But before we get to the break, I want to get to talking about Cade a little bit, because I'm encouraged, like you guys, about how we're seeing. I mean, Michigan's a heavy counter team. You throw in a counter reverse. You see the plan that's sort of coming together. And is a lot of this JJ specific, or is there still room for Cade with what they do to be what he was last year? And can he return to that when needed if the pressure of the competition is on him? Because I agree with you, Seth. What we've seen from him in these 2 games, he's better than that. And so how do you get him back to that point? Is there still room for that in your eyes?
In my opinion, yes, because I think the pressure to some extent is off Cade now. And, or it is, and I don't know what's happened to him, but at the end of last year, he looked like, a pretty good quarterback. They did actually win the Big Ten and make it to the Final Four. And so, and a lot of that was Cade. And so it's hard for me to believe that's not a spot he can't go back to. He can't perform at that level. I think maybe to some extent now the pressure has been minimized.
I mean,
how do you keep him engaged? That's the thing to me as a coach. I think that's on the coach's side, and even teammates. Keeping your captain and your backup quarterback engaged.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a Cade thing, right? There's nothing that anybody can do after you've lost your job to say. I mean, they can tell you to be ready, but that comes down to you and your personality. And I think Cade. This guy started as a freshman for his high school team, right? Like, this is a guy who's played a lot of football. He's going to be looking probably towards a transfer next year, and he's going to want to make sure that he's a good teammate so that he has the best possible chance to land at a place where he can play in a good program. Notre Dame.
Or Iowa, right?
I
wouldn't wish that upon him.
Yeah, like we're looking for Cade McNamara to be happy and healthy, and you can't do that at Iowa.
Spencer Petras have another year of eligibility. Get stuck behind him.
But yeah, I mean, realistically, this is modern college football, and he needs to stay ready. And Michigan is going to need to have him play, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get drives in these games, like even Maryland and Iowa. Like, he's been there, and yeah, he had a couple bad performances in these 2 games, but we've seen way more of him than just these 2 games, and we know what level he can get at, and that's a level where you can win a lot of games. It's not JJ McCarthy's upside though, and so that's where the program's headed. But at least he had the opportunity, and he didn't take it. He didn't get to the point where he's going to be the starter here. But I don't think that. I mean, I guess I would hope that he would look at what's happened and say, "All right, well, I understand."
I think
JJ
he will.
keeps-
I think he will.
JJ keeps the ball. JJ runs. JJ puts himself in situations where he's not protecting his body. JJ's going to get dinged up at least one time this year.
No. Don't speak that into existence.
Right.
I don't want to hear
I've
that.
seen some football in my day,
Yeah,
and you
He
got to be
ran
ready.
the slide. And,
No,
and
okay.
he's not fighting for a
Cade's gotta be
job
out there
anymore. He
to be
doesn't have
ready.
to throw his body on the line. Because, like
Okay.
Al said, yeah, I could tell the guy to slide. And he's going to say, yeah, coach, I'm trying to win a job. All right, the job is yours, young fella. Right? I mean, you got to play. You can't
He
just
did get out of
willy-nilly
bounds
in,
in
but
this game. There was that one was an archery that he had all in front of him, and then there was an opportunity to maybe go through a guy, and he just stepped out of bounds. And I was like, thank you, JJ. Don't take that hit you don't need to take.
yeah, I mean, you look at that. You look at when he steps up in the pocket on his last touchdown throw. He could have run 20 yards on that play probably, right? But he kept his eyes down for he threw it. So you like that he is. It's not always if I see an opening, I'm going to run. I like that part of him too.
Do you
Yeah,
guys
I mean,
remember Eric Mays? I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying he's not going to be Sean Clifford, right? Sean Clifford is a guy who was most effective with his legs and got beat down because Penn State had to run him 15 times a game. JJ McCarthy doesn't have to do that. JJ McCarthy can run 6 times a game for 800 yards per carry, and that's going to work out great. And the first couple hits are invigorating, right?
That's why Harbaugh is like,
Yeah.
all the time, right?
Just once you get to 10, ask Devin what's like to get hit 35 times in one game.
Oh, man.
He'll be like, didn't
You
like
talking
that.
about feelings. That's the one game where I was like, look, man, someone needs to go get a penalty or something when your quarterback is getting killed. I remember sitting in the booth or sitting in the press box watching Devin get destroyed against Michigan State.
Yeah.
And then he's spitting up blood on the side. I'll never forget that. I was like, man, so offensive lineman has to take that personally when your quarterback is getting battered and bruised that way. And hey, man, do something.
Yeah, I mean,
something to give him a break.
But he doesn't have to be in that position because Michigan's
Right.
got Blake Corum. Michigan's got a ton of wide receivers. Michigan is going to be able to spread the ball around and not put too much on JJ McCarthy's legs, but those legs are still hugely important because of the things they allow Michigan to do.
Incidentally, what did you guys think of Stokes? Didn't it look to you like he had a little bit of burst?
So let's pause.
Yeah.
We'll pick this up on the other side. We got to get to a break. More MGoBlog Roundtable on the other side here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA. The Ticket.
Yeah, he had one bad bounce, but other than that, he
Put it on the radio.
was good.
All right, so I saw you guys. Hey, all you guys. So I go to the solo layout. And each one of you guys.
Oh my God! Don't do that again. Put a big piece of tape over that button and never touch it again. Oh my God! It was such bad radio. I'm like, what's happening? Oh my God! Because I see your faces and I can react to that while I'm talking. So I know. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at myself on my screen. I'm like, oh no.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. I felt like once I did it, I mean, I wasn't doing it to you. I did it so I could adjust my light over here. And so once I did it to you, I felt like, okay, I got to give the other guys equal cameras.
Yeah, you get, but it's very disconcerting because your thought is, am I talking to myself? Is that
Yeah,
That's
just
what I
what
got
happened
knocked
to
off
everybody else?
what happened to everybody else? Am I talking to my shoe at this point?
I thought I'd gotten knocked offline. I thought I was in a side pocket or something like that. Just
That's what
shut
I
up,
thought.
Seth. You take your own little radio show with one.
Oh man. So anyway, what did you guys? We won't get into this on the air because we belabored the topic on the air. But what did you guys think of the booing? Was it booing?
I didn't
Kenny
hear
Payne?
it, but
Was
it
it booing
must-
Cade specifically? What did you think?
We're
I
not
didn't
on the air
hear
right
it.
now, so fuck them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well-
I didn't hear it, but I assume it existed. I mean,
Oh yeah, it existed for sure.
I mean,
it's stupid.
It's stupid, but we get 100,000 people in one place, and how many of them are going to be stupid? More than
half.
5.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you
So-
At
think?
least 8
Did you
'cause they
think
got
they were
arrested.
booing Cade though, or did you think they
Yes,
were
I did.
booing the decision to put Cade in?
I mean,
Well,
Is that the
that's
same- is that the
that's a
same
pretty
thing?
fine line,
Yeah.
right?
But that's it. You know what? You got a lot of Michigan fans. I don't know if you've had this topic on your board, but it's been on my board. I just happened to put up. I interviewed Jaden Davis's dad. They had a great visit and everything.
Yeah.
When he mentioned unsolicited, oh man, what is it? Michigan fans that booing their quarterback? What is
Yeah.
that? That was
I
terrible.
mean,
And
fans
so
who
he mentioned it
booze-
unsolicited,
So Sam, what do you say to that on the screen?
which is maybe so. Just know that it definitely can. I'm not saying they are not gonna not get. It's not like they're gonna lose Jaden Davis as a result of this. I don't think. I just know if you're looking for the experience to be as positive as it could possibly be, it wasn't as positive as it could possibly be when his dad is mentioning unsolicited. It's like, man, Michigan fans, that's how they do when things aren't going well. They just boo their quarterback.
I
Watch
mean,
this
also
week.
it was like 42-0 or something. Why are you're booing? It's 42-0. What
Yeah.
is? I mean,
Yeah, and so my point is, you had
Anyone who booed
fans
is an
when I
imbecile,
mentioned that, they were like, well, I mean, this is, they weren't really booing Cade. They were booing, Jim's decision to put Cade in at that point. So why would you do that when they're up 35-0 when he went in the game? Like,
Yeah.
All right, there's always going to be in 100,000 people. You're going to get some idiots. Do you remember people like were getting on Ronnie Bell? There's still a guy in my my Twitter mentions who was like complaining about Ronnie Bell's drops and like, you guys got to get on Ronnie Bell about the drops after the fumble and stuff. I'm like, and then of course he has the touchdown catch right after that.
yeah.
But like, do you remember after the Penn State drop, there were like a couple people and someone focused on like a couple people online being mad that he dropped that pass. And then the next week, everybody was chanting Ronnie Bell when he made a catch.
Yeah,
And see,
that
that's
was
a
nice.
That's what this
point.
fan base is
That
about.
is a
Yeah,
great point.
that's a great point. And so that's when I say, what do you think of it? To me, it was more the reaction of other fans. Look, you don't confront people over how they cheer, if they're booing or not. But the response to me is, if you hear that, because maybe there'll be another instance in Michigan Stadium,
Stand
the
by
rest
us,
of the
what I
fans
thought
should
right
be
here.
like, they should draw that out with cheers. That's how you respond to it.
I mean, I
It's like
God,
Brian said, you can't. Pardon me?
I remember I was in the stands
Okay,
and
gotcha.
I think Dennis Norfleet was returning punts, and there was this guy behind me who like said something like "run like you stole it."
And we are
And I
back, folks,
was-
here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTK.com. Sam Webb, Ira Weintraub, MGoBlog Roundtable. We'll resume here shortly. But after I tell you, if you're looking to renovate your kitchen, your bathroom, maybe you need a new roof, new windows or doors, maybe you need new floors. Our friends at Chelsea Lumber have you covered, because Chelsea Lumber is where the home begins. You go to chelsealumber.com, click that departments tab. You see all of those options. Even better when you make it to one of their 3 locations in Chelsea, Saline, or Bridgewater. You can get that in-person help up to and including design help when it's like a whole room or beyond. We needed our kitchen done. Their design specialist met with us, got our budget, got our taste, put together an awesome design, even helped us find a contractor to bring that design to life. That is the Chelsea Lumber difference. Again, Chelsea Lumber, where the home begins, with 3 locations to serve you in Chelsea, Saline, and Bridgewater. You can find them online at chelsealumber.com. So, fellas, before we went to the break, Craig, you were talking about CJ Stokes, who has clearly emerged as the number 3 running back for Michigan as a true freshman.
Yeah, and I think on Brian and Seth's podcast, they referred to him as similar to Karan Higdon, and I can see that, except I predict this. He will never get called for holding when he is tackled on play action. That will never happen to Stokes.
You are making a bet in favor of the Big Ten refs, Craig. That is that's a big change for you. Congratulations.
If we don't play Northwestern, that chances of that prediction go up significantly.
O'Neal did retire though, so there's one less head referee to worry about.
Yeah,
Well,
that's true.
No, but I like Stokes. So I like his jitteriness. He's got burst, and he usually has pretty good instincts about how and where to cut. So he's a guy who presses outside and then cuts right off his offensive lineman's butt, and that's always really encouraging to see. He did have one play which I thought was a bad bounce. Still gained 3 yards on it though. But yeah, I think what we've seen from him is pretty encouraging.
Yeah, they the thing that I've been more surprised by is they say his speed is comparable to that of Donovan Edwards, and and Blake Corum. I didn't have. I didn't. That certainly wasn't a part of the scouting report coming in. Maybe the scouting report was just incomplete.
It was
But-
early. He the first time he ever popped up on scouting reports, he went to a camp in Florida. No one had ever heard of the guy because he was just playing some terrible South Carolina team that all the coaches from South Carolina, they put their kids on that team. And like he was running ridiculous track times in front of everybody. And then I think he had like a 4.3 something and whatever they were timing, you know.
Yeah, I think our profile had him in like the 4.5s or 4.6s.
Yeah, because he went to other camps afterwards and got probably more realistic times.
Mhm.
But everyone like was shocked that I think he was a sophomore then, or maybe a freshman then. Like his speed was originally part of his thing, and there was really no way to tell because he played against such terrible competition in South Carolina.
All I know is in this game, I don't know how fast he is, but for 10 yards or 5 yards, he's fast.
So wait a minute. Is this Eric in South Carolina
Yeah.
who just came in on YouTube and said his dad speed trains? He's actually going to train my son. So Eric trying to get back in the good. Maybe he had something to do with CJ Stokes coming to Michigan, trying to make up for losing John Morant. Like this is Eric. Eric, I haven't forgotten about you. John Beeline. I saw John Beeline at a golf outing a couple weeks ago. He said, man, I'm almost over Eric not getting John Morant for me, not letting me know that we had a chance. Even though he's, even with the Pistons now, he still talks about you, Eric. So maybe you'll make up for it if CJ Stokes winds up being that guy, which again, fellas, I mean, the talk inside, and this was one of the things before the game that I was getting is they are convinced that CJ Stokes can be every bit as good as Donovan and Blake, which again, you wouldn't think that by recruiting rankings, and I'm sure that would be one of those where Mike Hart stands up and says, "See, I told you." If CJ
is Fred Jackson with the program again, is that
he is with the program again?
is that what I detect over here?
I mean, I got to see a little bit more from Stokes, but what we've seen so far is pretty encouraging. So. And like his attitude is great. I mean, he's had one of the quotes of the offseason where he's like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's like, no, I'm not happy. Never happy. Why would I be happy?
Yeah, man, it is. All right. So as we look ahead, because there's so much to be encouraged by over these first couple of games, slightly tougher opponent. And the emphasis on slightly when you talk about UConn, right? Brian saying no. Not even slightly tougher.
I mean,
they stink.
Let's put it this way. The worst thing that happened to them is they lost their starting quarterback who was going to lead them, who's like the best player on the team. That guy, that starting quarterback they lost, is the guy that Penn State put in last year when Clifford went down and they all of a sudden lost to Iowa. Roberson. That's the guy that they're counting on the whole season.
He got hurt in the second play. I think it was the second play of the game he played in. He went out. Yeah, and they're playing a guy named Zion Turner, who's a freshman. Do you know anything about him? I know he hasn't been real good.
Not so really far. Ready to play yet. And then they got the next Millen brother. Remember I was talking about Millen against
yeah, but he's barely played.
Against Colorado State. Yeah, so they're using him as kind of like what we used JJ last year. He's got a running package.
Yeah. I mean, UConn is bad. They lost by 34 to Syracuse. I think Syracuse is an average-ish team. They gave up, 470 yards against Syracuse. I don't see much there. I'm not sure they're really a better team than, say, Colorado State. In fact, I think they're rated. Sagarin isn't a great measure, and at this point in the year, it really is meaningless. But he has UConn at number 149, and which is 15 spots worse than Colorado State. So it's not
so they're terrible. Well, here's the thing. That bodes well for the linebacker. I know Michigan didn't cover last week. And that was actually what Ira put up because we had to pick the game. He said, well, you guys aren't going to pick the game. You're going to pick against the spread. So I said Michigan will cover. Steve Clark said, no, they won't. He was sweating bullets in the first half. And then when Michigan changed quarterbacks in the second half, he's like, okay, I'm going to win now. Right? Well, that is not going to be in play this week as much, guys, because if you're Michigan, don't you have to play you can't go in the Big Ten, play with your starters only having played a half of football in the first 3 games. Don't you got to play them longer in this contest, even if you are beating them by 40, don't you?
I don't think so. I mean, what is reps against UConn going to get you?
building that stamina up for when you got to play 4 quarters. Like these guys are getting 30 reps. Like these guys aren't getting a whole lot of reps right now. And so you gotta condition yourself for that kind of competition. I expect these guys to play 3 quarters this week.
I imagine Jim Harbaugh's practices have done a better job of conditioning than anything UConn's going to be able to do, except the wide receivers. Because I want to get this in. I've never seen cornerbacks this bad. And I've seen we've got cornerbacks from a lot of bad teams, and these guys move slower than linebackers. So those receivers are going to be running downfield and being wide open, and then they're going to have to run back and yell at their quarterback for not hitting them because he hit the other guy who was wide open. So it's going to be a track meet. I don't see any reason to, possibly injure the starters out there. Just get them out there, beat them.
I think you're going to see it for 3 quarters. We won't see it for the whole game. Like some of these other teams, they're blowing out. They got their starters in. But I do think we'll see them for 3 quarters in this contest. So that means a big number. If they're as bad as the first 2 teams, and you're going to see the starters for 3 quarters, and they have some mileage under them now, this should be an epic blowout. And then the question then becomes, do we see what of the young, you're talking about receivers, which of the young receivers do we see blow up with a big play? Amarion Walker almost had one in this game where I saw him after the game. And he was like, didn't know how fast I was.
Right? He was open. He was behind them. Yeah.
So
and he's playing both ways, right? Because didn't they switch his jersey number and he played corner?
Although the only time he appeared on my defensive charting, he's blocking like a receiver and picked up a foul. It was a penalty. They didn't need to call it. That wiped out Sean Benny's sack, but they did not need to call it. He did not pull out the flag until the sack was already happening. It's like, dude, come on. What are you doing?
Man. It'll be an interesting thing because I think he's one of those guys. He's the kind of athlete, just talking to the other players. And I could see this because I went to see Amarion last year, like the first week of their season. They're playing. I talked about this. They were playing Arch Manning. Everyone's talking about Arch Manning, right? Now, Arch Manning comes out, he throws a bomb, and he looks really good. Things quieted from there because he was getting hit. They couldn't protect him. But Amarion Walker, from that first series on, was the best player on the field. They could not run with him. And so you really don't get a feel for how fast he is until you're up on him. He's such a long strider. He's so fluid at that size. He went and he ran like a 4.3 at Alabama's camp. That's when his recruitment blew up. But Michigan, up to that point, because they didn't know how fast he was either, up to that point, they had been recruiting him as a corner. And then they transitioned into recruiting him as a receiver. So this is one of those guys, kind of like Mikey Sainristil, where they always kind of saw the possibility of him seeing some time on both sides of the ball. And as a freshman, when you're as deep in the receiver room as they are, this is just another way to get them on the field at a spot where they could use them. Brian, Seth, Craig, I mean, corner isn't super deep at this point. So if you can bring him along in the defense, he can really help there.
Yeah,
probably not this year, right?
They used him there this year already.
Yeah, I think this year.
Late against Hawaii. I mean, honestly, I think you got to explore it if it's all plausible, right? Because if he's 6'4" and he's at all able to stick with guys, well, I mean, that's a dude. Because you can just have him play inside leverage all day and dare people to fade over the top of him like Jeremy Clark.
Right.
And so the wide receiver depth chart looks pretty good going forward because I think Tyler Morris is going to be a player. I think Darius Clemens is going to be a player. You got Andrew Anthony for at least another year. So, cornerback is a spot where you're going to lose DJ Turner probably to the NFL after this year. You're going to lose Jamon Green. So it's I want to see where this goes because if he's at all in contact, you want to put the ball over this guy and trail. Okay.
The comparison to me is his position coach because this is how Ron Bellamy broke in his freshman year. He came in as a receiver, saw some time as a receiver. They needed him at corner. They get in the Orange Bowl. Ron Bellamy's playing corner in the Orange Bowl. against Alabama. So, they sort of grew him up over time. And Ron will tell you that Amari has a better athlete than he was in his day. And so, man, if you can right now, and I was surprised to hear how descriptive Klink was. He said, right now it's just man coverage. So when Amari was on the field, you gotta know what the defense is, right? But you grow him up over the course of the season where you can be versatile enough with him where you can use him in meaningful moments. But to your point, Brian, I don't think they'll be there for some time.
A question for you, Sam, is with Notre Dame going in the tank and probably, they've lost.
Isn't this what we said?
Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
I give them credit. I give Marcus. They are an outstanding recruiting staff.
Yeah.
Whether it's their ability to connect with guys or all of the. You look at their recruiting department, and I know what Pot of Gold Day is. Why do I know that? Because they do their marketing campaign and recruiting operation is outstanding. But my take was, and our take as we talked about it over the course of the offseason, was like, man, if you can just drag out some of these recruitments or the ones that you can't, just keep contact with the guys that commit. Because let's wait to see if these guys can coach, right? That you can't just be a recruiter. Can you actually coach? And you don't question that after you lose to Ohio State in Columbus. But after you lose to Marshall, but after you lose to Marshall, Craig, that becomes a question.
Yeah, they lost to Oklahoma State, then they lost to Ohio State. Okay, you can get those, but Marshall at home, and it isn't like a fluke. They were outplayed. Marshall outplayed them, and so it's the first time in the history, I guess, of Notre Dame where a coach has lost his first 3 games, and so my concern isn't that maybe they can't coach, because I don't know that they may be fine coaches, but but whether someone over there, Marion Walker was a Notre Dame commit, I think
he was,
and so I wonder if someone over there, and because they've got a great class going, if someone in that class is thinking, well, maybe I should start rethinking this, particularly a cornerback, particularly where Michigan's going to have a major need for corners next year, although we have Will Johnson, but we're still a little thin there, as you point out.
We talked about this on the recruiting podcast. We'll release it later today. Please stop asking me. So we're releasing it later today. But this is one of the things that we talked about. And Michigan's experience last year, I think, is an excellent model to mimic. I hope that, and I think that is indeed the case. I know the recruiting staff has changed, but they did a great job of staying engaged with guys that were committed to other schools. Marion Walker, Derek Moore, Darius Clemens. There was someone else down the stretch that flipped. That's eluding me right now. But anyway, they flipped all of those guys. So if you had maintained
Miles Pollard,
no, he wasn't committed to another school, but someone else. Anyway, if you've maintained connections with those guys, now that they're looking a little iffy, you can drop in on the Charles Jagusa or a Peyton Bowen or a Jay Nosberry and say, hey, why don't you come take a visit, right? That's the natural progression, as long as you've been keeping in contact with those guys, and I think Michigan has. Keon Sabb thank you. See, this is why I love our people. This is why I love our people. D-Tuck 17, Sabb, Tom Bruce came in.
They're all immediately.
Coming in. It was Keon Sabb, who we talked about it when he committed to Clemson. Say, hey, people laughed, but I said, I think they're going to stay in contact with Keon Sabb. They did, and it wound up really, really working out. Here's some more. Keon Sabb. Melvin Smith says it was Keon Sabb.
You keep this up, you're going to make us talk about his one play in this game, and we don't need to talk about that. That was a very freshman play. He and Micah Pollard together, man, we shouldn't be out here right now. We're going to laugh about this one day.
Right. All right. So, guys, I guess give me a pick in this game. A pick on Michigan versus the spread. Does Michigan cover in this game?
What is the line? 46?
I think it's 46. Yeah, it's right in that range. Isn't it 46 points still?
I am looking for the current live updated score line. Give me 1 second.
It's coming. Assume
I hate these spreads, because these spreads are like,
it is
how
40,
good
it's around 47, 48. Yeah.
All right. My pick is Michigan 62 points. UConn 61 yards.
Well, hey, that's not so far off, given the fact they only gained about 200
Brian
against
play the over under, and the Michigan, according to Brian,
Syracuse.
Michigan covers the over alone.
All right, Craig.
Yeah, I picked Hawaii to cover last week, which turned out to be right, and I'm going to pick Michigan to cover this week. I think Sam, you're right in at least part that they'll play the starters a little longer this week. So
yeah. Hey, and up in the right corner to Seth Fisher, who Gene Hankerson says, "Hey, that looks like Tom Beaver." Not Tom Beaver. That's Seth Fisher up there. Seth, what do you think?
I hate these spreads because it's like, how much Davis Warren gonna shred them? Davis Warren is gonna shred them 72-0.
I'm so pulling for that kid.
no phone. Your
Man.
interview with him, Sam, was wonderful.
Mhm.
That was one of the better interviews of the year, along with the one of Martelli yesterday, which is something we need to talk about at some point.
We will get to that. The King of Philly, I love him too. That's my dude. So anyway, a lot to get to. Another great roundtable session. Look forward to it again next week, folks. Also, look forward to caller number 7 at 734-998-1050. Come in with us. Where, Mr. Weintraub? I'm sorry. I should have queued you. That is right. Inside the Bud Light Victor's Lounge, caller number 7 at 734-998-1050. You will join us inside the Bud Light Victor's Lounge. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket, the official voice of University of Michigan Sports, Ann Arbor, a Cumulus station.